Hi friends, this is Caitlin, and today I'm sharing with you this beautiful mini slimline card that I made after I saw a real life sunset on my way home the other day. I'm using some of my new favorite items to make this card today, including the Honeybee Stamps mini slimline dies, which just really help me make sure all of my lines are nice and straight, these tacky tiles from the stamp market, and I'll show you how I use those with my Distress Oxide inks. It makes blending so much easier. I'll list all of the colors of everything I'm using in that description box below for you, as well as the inks, but we're going to be doing some heat embossing with this Wildflower Stamp Set from Simon Says Stamp. And if you're not a part of our crafty family yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I have lots of really fun things coming your way very soon, and I always share new ink card inspiration every Friday with you. I'm going to be starting out by stamping one of these floral silhouette images from this very large Simon Says Stamp set, and I'm going to be doing that on some Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock. I find that for Distress Oxides especially, this paper is perfect for getting a really smooth blend. I also knew that I was going to be layering this up on top of black cardstock, so I wasn't super worried about needing 100 or 120 pound when it was just going to be my top panel. I also laid a piece of printer paper in my MISTI underneath that's just folded in half, because that stamp is so much bigger than my cardstock. It hangs over, and I just don't like when the stamp is still sticky and it picks up my grid paper. I know that's probably silly, but I've just found that a piece of printer paper solves that problem for me. So I decided to go in with the Ink On 3 black waterproof ink. I wanted something that wouldn't smudge, even though I knew I was going to be going in with my embossing powder on top to kind of seal it. Just in case, I figured this would give me a very dark black and very crisp imprint. And I did go in with my embossing powder, and I did a first layer over this ink without anything else sticky on top. And it didn't get the best coverage because this isn't like a slow drying ink. It's not made for that, but I kind of just wanted to experiment and see what would happen if I used it, and it definitely did cover some of it. But it was okay because I was always planning on going in with a layer of my Watermark embossing ink afterwards, which is sticky and stays wet for a long time so that you can emboss with it. And I figured that 2 layers of embossing powder would just be even better for making sure that I got a really nice blend and that my colors really help stand out over top of that embossing powder. So now is when I'm going in with that Watermark clear ink. And I did shift my cardstock just a little bit. You could see there when I placed it down. I think it also had to do with the fact that it was a little bit bowed from using my heat tool. And so I have a tiny bit of a white highlight on the edge around my image, but once I did my ink blending, I found that I absolutely love the way that that looked, and I really hope that in the future I'm able to recreate that on purpose, because it really gave a very nice, almost like moonlit, or like that last little sliver of sun that's going down is just catching the edges of everything and creating a highlight. I thought it was a very happy coincidence, right? It's a Bob Ross moment. There's only happy accidents over here. And I really love how it turned out. There's also something so satisfying to me about watching embossing powder melt and it gets shiny. I just love that. It's very satisfying. So I hope that works for you too. And now it was time to get ready to do my ink blending. So these are a newer item for me. I have them in a couple sizes. These are the tacky tiles from the stamp market, and these ones are specifically for the Distress Oxides and Distress Inks in the big cubes. These are so sticky. Even when you think that they're not sticky, I promise you that they're still very sticky. So definitely make sure that you could see I was pressing it onto my skin and onto my desk and getting a little embossing powder on it and some of the oil from my hands on it. You want these to be not fresh, or they will not come off of your desk. So once you have them prepped though, and they're on your desk, you can see they're holding my inks perfectly in place. And then when everything is said and done, I'm able to pick them right up off of my desk, put them away, and I don't have to worry about any kind of stands or anything taking up a lot of space. They're just small and flat, and they fit in a little cup on my shelf. So now I'm going in with my small Simon Says Stamp ink blending brushes. These are a set that I treated myself to during their last Simon brand sale. And these are just for my oxides now. I feel very official to have oxide brushes. I know that probably sounds very silly, but I look at people like Kathy Zilski and Jennifer McGuire and other people, and they are like so inspirational to me. And if I can do any little thing that makes me feel closer to them, I will do it, right? I want to be there one day. So you got to do the little steps that you can to make yourself feel like that. So I went in with warm lipstick first, and then I did a little bit of spiced marmalade. Now you can see I'm going in with my mustard seed, and I'm really trying to keep these warmer colors really just to the bottom of my image. And that's because the sunset that I saw in real life was at 6:20. Which was just the most amazing part of the whole thing. I could not get over the fact that it was after 6 o'clock and there was still some kind of light in the sky. It makes me so happy to know that spring and summer are on their way. I know it happens every year, obviously, but sometimes it's hard to remember that those days will be here before we know it. So I kept those brighter colors right at the very, very bottom, like it is the absolute last little bit of sliver of sun that's left in the day. And I'm going in with a bunch of the peacock feathers and really using that, and what's next will be prize ribbon, to fill in the sky and create a very nice smooth blend. So to do that, I'm just going to go back and forth between the two colors, making sure that I'm overlapping them really well in the middle. And these oxides blend amazingly. They're so much easier than the inks. I still love my Distress inks, don't get me wrong, and I'm very excited. Tim Holtz has a new shade he's announcing tomorrow, and I already have mine on reserve because whatever the color is, I know I'm gonna love it. But I haven't been able to play enough with my Distress Oxides, and I am in love with them. So once I had that prize ribbon and the peacock feathers blended out, I decided to go in and add just a little bit of black soot right up at the top. And you can see I'm holding my die cut there just so I have a guide of exactly how far I needed to bring that down so that a little bit makes it into the seam, but it doesn't take over that blue. And then the same as before, I'm going to go back and forth between the two colors right where they meet in the middle, just to make sure that I get a nice smooth transition. But again, these oxides just are so beautiful. And now you can start to see too that little white highlight right on the edge of all of my stamped images that I was talking about. I just think that this is absolutely amazing, and I'm definitely going to have to try to recreate that one day on purpose. Then it was time to clean up my inks and take my tacky tiles off of my desk. It did take a little bit of work, but they're generally pretty easy to remove. I think with time it'll be even easier. This was the first time that I used them, and they definitely warn you on their site and on their video that you need to make sure that you tap them off to get rid of some of that stickiness. So then I used a microfiber cloth just to wipe off a little bit of extra oxide ink off of my embossing, and I added a few drops of the Lawn Fawn liquid stardust to some water and took a fan brush that apparently had a little bit of leftover orange ink in it that I did not realize, and I did some splatter. I don't mind the extra color at all. I think a little bit of gold to the shimmer is really pretty, and then I just blotted off the excess with a paper towel to give kind of that starry feel, like the beginning of night is coming. And I think that the little bit of shimmer just helps to give an extra interest to it. So then it was time to do my die cutting. So I took the largest of the Honeybee Stamps mini Slimline dies, and I cut that out of black cardstock. I used the same cardstock to cut out this Simon Says Stamp thank you die that I got as like a free gift or gift with purchase or whatever the last time I placed an order, but I absolutely love it. And I did the shadow layer out of vellum just to help it stand out against the sky. Originally, I thought I was going to be placing this over the black at the bottom of the card, but as you saw in the beginning, I ended up putting it up towards the top. But I think the vellum is great because either way, it would have helped to separate it and stand out without taking away from the card or being super harsh. So I just used my honeybee glue to lay that down onto the vellum, and then made sure that I had the right size for the next size smaller die, mini Slimline die that I was using to trim out my scene. And I kind of just had a little fun wiggling that back and forth, trying to make sure that I got the layout that I really wanted, and that those two taller flowers were really helping to kind of frame the scene on either side. And I ran this through my die machine with a piece of printer paper folded over the top, and I just wanted you to see how much ink comes off on that printer paper. So if you don't have time to let your whole panel dry for a little bit and you need to go in immediately and die cut it, definitely make sure that you're putting the printer paper on top, because if that ink transfers to your plate and then you die cut something else later that's a light color, the ink will transfer back onto your paper and it could potentially mess up your project. Nobody wants that. I speak from experience. So I did decide to place my thank you right at the top, and I just laid a little bit of liquid glue behind the black letters. I'm making sure that it's straight, and when I shifted it, a tiny bit of glue did come up between the O and the N, but I really don't mind. I don't think it takes away from the overall effect. When I did my oxide inking, there was a tiny bit of cloudiness that I just couldn't get rid of on the bottom part of my embossing. And so I took a little bit of regular black soot distress ink, and I found that by running a tiny bit of that over the top, it helped to take the cloudy effect away, but it wasn't enough ink to transfer. So I don't exactly know how it worked, but it definitely worked. So if that's something you've dealt with before, you can totally try that out. Then I went in and added a couple of these Studio Katia tiny iridescent bubbles just to give an extra little bit of iridescence and glow, kind of just to play up that liquid stardust. And I absolutely love how this card turned out. I hope that you're feeling really inspired. I hope that this gets you your brain thinking, and you can take a second and look around you and look at nature and look at maybe what's even right out your window, or your car window for that matter, and see what is out there that can inspire you and help you get creative with your art. And I hope that you have an amazing week. I am so grateful for you coming to hang out with me today, and as always, happy crafting.